Welcome to Naked and Afraid. I'm Bobby Lawrence, and this is Ronald May. Again, it's kind of the title of the show.
Yes.
We're really, before God, we're stripped naked of our self-righteousness. Yes. We're bears naked before Him. And are we afraid? Or are we just like,
Yes.
me and Him have a great understanding. I made my peace with the man upstairs, or the old man upstairs. There's no awe of God. Okay, Mark 1:21. They went into Capernaum, and right away he entered the synagogues on the Sabbath and began to teach. They were astonished at his teachings, because he was teaching them as one who had authority and not like the scribes.
Just taking the word for what it says. You and I have all kinds of experiences. We've both been to Israel. We've both been to these places. Man, you can see a whole lot that proves the Bible, that proves that Jesus walked. But taking the simplicity of this gospel, we see that a group of men who knew the word, who were the ones who were supposed to teach, and not only teach, but write the scribes.
Right.
They realized that Jesus knew the Bible as well.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And go ahead.
And that's why he taught with authority. He was the Word.
And they were just amazed. This is a carpenter. I think in one book when you read it, it says, they said, "Is this the carpenter's son?"
Yeah. How can this be?
And he's in front of the scribes on the Sabbath day, is what the word says, and he's not only preaching sound doctrine, he's preaching that sound doctrine with authority, with power. And you said earlier that they still didn't get it.
Still didn't get it. No. They didn't get it. They didn't know the word. He didn't look. Even though things had to have been saying, wait a minute, is this guy an imposter? Or is he the real thing? He wasn't nothing to look like. He wasn't like me. He looked with long hair like everybody thinks. He didn't look nothing like me. And people say, oh, Bobby, you got long hair like Jesus. No, Jesus didn't have long hair like me. But he wasn't, even some people even said he was bald-headed. But anyway, he didn't look the part. And that happens even today. You got to look a certain way to be a pastor, and a certain look or money or prestige to be in any kind of ministry. And that's not true. It's usually the guys that don't look the part that do the most damage.
Well, you had a bunch of people smelling like fish.
Yeah.
Who were disciples. They weren't clean cut. And they worked with their hands.
Yeah.
They were pretty brawly people.
Well, Jesus was a carpenter, so I figured he was probably, even at 33, he was probably weathered.
Yes.
Especially in Israel, it's pretty warm there.
Yes.
Similar to our climate here in Georgia.
Yes. So they saw him teaching in authority and power. They saw him having sound doctrine. And so I want you to read 23 and just go on until that idea stops, which...
Just then, a man with an unclean spirit was in the synagogue. He cried out, what do you have to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. Well, there's one one nail in the coffin right there, I guess you could say.
And where was this unclean spirit at?
It was in the synagogue.
That's what the Bible says.
Yeah, exactly where it says it's at.
It was in the synagogue.
Inside the synagogue.
And this one unclean spirit knew Jesus,
yeah.
the Holy One of Israel.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that we can talk about here, because Jesus is proving himself to the scribes and Pharisees by the authority that he's teaching the word. And then to go further, there's this unclean spirit that cries out, and we're going to see what Jesus does.
For it just to be defined as an unclean spirit here, They knew what a unclean, they knew what a possession was, but this one knew him.
Yes.
And said, what do you have to do with us? That looks like, that would have been like, man, if I was a Pharisee, would I have been just as blind as they were? Because evidently they were blinded by something. Even the demons say, why do you come? Hello? But I still think it's that blind jealousy and all that back over here where they wanted to throw him off the cliff.
Yes.
There was something in them that was just jealous or something that stirred this in them, or maybe it was just God blinding them. I don't know.
Well, the Jews were looking for someone to bring back the government of Israel. They were being ruled by Rome, and they wanted a king. They wanted a ruler, and Jesus comes back as a suffering servant first, and we know as we read the Bible he comes back as that king and judge. But at this time the Pharisees and scribes, they're not saying Jesus is the Messiah. He's too meek and mild.
Well, even still, there's another part right here. Is there any good thing that could come out of Nazareth? You see, for instance, he's Nazareth. What good thing could come out of Nazareth?
Yes.
And so that's part of the deal right there. That's what they're thinking. There ain't nothing good could come out of that. He was on the wrong side of the tracks. And I think it's kind of hilarious how the demon even brought out where he was from, and that had to irritate him even more.
Yes.
Because they already had it set in their mind how Christ was going to come. Their Messiah, they already knew how, and he was going to set up his kingdom, and they were going to rule Israel like no time ever. And here comes this lonely guy out of Nazareth.
Yes.
And the same mistake they made could we be making today with our end time teaching?
I hear you.
Could Christ come and we totally miss it?
Mm-hmm.
Or could a false Messiah come and us totally miss it? And the only way we could really know for sure is, do we know him?
That's right.
Paul says, my goal is to know him. Those people that persecuted him and killed him, they knew about Jesus, but they didn't know him. And I think if we're not in tune, we could make the same mistake the Pharisees. Because how many times have you read here and said, well, if I'd have lived back then, I wouldn't have done that to Jesus. Really?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Really?
Paul says...
Let me talk about your Christmas tree and your Easter bunnies and see how unwound you get.
Paul said to know him and the power of his resurrection. So when the Pharisees were, when the scribes were listening to him, it said that he preached, or he taught with authority. Well, another word for authority is with power.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think you're exactly right. We see Jesus in the American church as an overall. We see Jesus as a meek and mild man. We have love is out there. We have this idea of and I'll say it, a pre-tribulation rapture, that the church is going to be out of here before that type of persecution comes. Right. And so we even have the Easter bunny and Christmas, like you're saying, and Christians stand so hard on those non-biblical ideas, which the pre-rapture is just a theory.
It's kind of like this. From my youth, I've been taught this. So whenever you're taught this yes, it's your doctrine, it's what you believe. And if you want to see some folks get upset, talk to some older women about Christmas trees, and they're gonna look at you like you're Satan. And I understand that. Well, that's the same way. These rabbis and scribes, they wasn't evil people. I mean, from the age of 13, they went and lived with other rabbis, and they're taught this daily. I mean, they knew this word inside and out. And here comes this Jesus, and boy, he don't look like my Messiah, but boy, he's got everybody's saying this is the guy. I'm sure it was a swirl. I mean, I imagine it was a mental swirl to these guys, because this guy could mess us up. He's speaking in a way that the rest of us ain't. The thing is, can I make that same mistake?